Night in the north always arrives like an iron tide, slow, inevitable, with that wind song that crosses the islands and makes the stones sing. In the longhouse of the Jarl the fire crackles, shields gleam on the beams, and voices, rough as the sea, mix with the fatty perfume of roasted lamb. There, beneath elk heads and smoking oak, scarred men drink and sing. In the middle of the hall, standing like a post planted in a storm, is Sigurd, called the Strong, tall, pale-eyed in a cloak of dyed wool and with a sword that knows many names. He is no king with crown or palace, but in Orkney his word outweighs a sceptre. Where his banner rises, the sea seems to obey. Before the mead horn completes its circle, before the tide turns, it is best to step back. No banquet is understood without the blood trail before it, and no victory song rings clean if there is no enemy facing it. For months, the islands have lived with a dark rumour. To the south, in Caithness, rules Máel Brigte, nicknamed Boar-Tooth. Fate did not give him that name. A long, rebellious tooth juts from his lip, splitting his smile in two. It said he rips bark with it, pries straps, and in fury bites like an animal. More than the tooth, they fear his hard head. Máel Brigte hoards grudges like others hoard gold. And in the north, where men measure a life by the offences they repay, that is a promise of war. Sigurd has pushed his dominion the way you shove a beached boat, with savage patience. He knows every cove where the sea lets crows rest, every headland where the winds change their names. He is no dreamer. He is a cold reckoning of loads, men and grain. When he hears that Máel Brigte is mustering a raid, he does not answer with murmurs. He sends messengers across the islands, summons ship chiefs, promises plunder, distributes oaths. The longhouse fills with footsteps, wet leather, greased axes. Women tie on arm rings, sons watch in silence. Oars are lashed down. The sea, which knows nothing of vengeance, takes the blow of keels once more. Sigurd's strategy is as old as cunning. He proposes a matching fight, and to tilt the odds, he orders his men to ride two to a horse when the enemy first sees them. From a distance, 2 men per beast look like 2 beasts per man. Numbers double in the eyes of those eager to believe they are outmatched. The message rides the wind. Máel Brigte accepts to meet with the force he thinks he sees. 100 for 100. Even stakes, say the skalds, but the trick is already stitched into the hem of the battle. At dawn, mist stains the field grey, and hooves tear wet grass. Crows, those black gods who know everything, draw circles over the heads. The clash is immediate. Wood against wood, iron against bone, cries that split the cold. Sigurd, beneath his raven-tailed standard, advances without hurry, like a man who knows violence needs no haste. No honour exists that does not pass through the steadiness of the wrist. At the 3rd charge, Máel Brigte's line buckles. By the 5th, the boars bite mud. When breath smoke tangles with the fog, the battle is decided. The Strong does not celebrate. He counts, he checks, he confirms with eyes and with blood. And only then does he order the bodies gathered, prisoners secured, the man of the tooth brought before all. Máel Brigte has fought as his nickname promised, with blind fury. Now, thrown down and bloodied, he still lifts his head and curses. Enemies of this kind are not ended by a wound, they are ended by a final gesture that speaks to the living. Sigurd's men force him to his knees. There is silence, the kind that weighs more than thunder. The Jarl does not smile. There is no pleasure in what is necessary. With a sign, the sword that has spoken so many names speaks one more. The head rolls, and in the eyes for a heartbeat, the obstinacy of centuries goes out. Here the saga could stop. It could close on the thunder of hooves, the cold wind, and justice as the North understands it. But the islands do not love clean endings. They prefer the irony that fate sharpens when men think they master everything. Máel Brigte's head, with its tooth, does not stay still. One of Sigurd's warriors, drunk on victory, lifts it by the hair and offers it to his lord, as trophies are offered for a feast. There is laughter, that sour joy that follows danger when life flows back into the bones. Sigurd does not look away. In his world, displaying the trophy is how you close the circle, how you tell your own, the danger is beheaded, winter will belong to us. Fever brings images that know how to enter. Máel Brigte's head, clean, bloodless, as if time had washed it, the tooth shining like a well-tempered blade, his own thigh, skin whole, unbroken. In that vision, Sigurd laughs without moving his mouth. He grasps the joke of fate completely. What he meant to display as closure was in truth an opening. What he hung as a sign of ending was a beginning. The dead enemy, who seemed expiation, was seed. In his culture, they will call this word, thread, weave, warp. No one cuts at will. Fictions aside, flesh speaks the last word. When his breath thins to a thread, the woman who shares his house enters. She straightens a blanket, wets his lips with warm water. She makes no promises. She does not bid him rise. In the north, love is often quiet care. Sigurd, with narrowing voice, recites the names of his ships like a prayer. Some bear names of wolves, others of stars. All have outlived worse than a tooth. All will go on when he does not. There is no thunder when he dies, no omen, only a clean silence as if the sea stepped into the hall to still everything, and a second later withdrew with what it came to take. The men present bow their heads, none weep loudly. They allow their hands to tremble as they draw the cloak over the Jarl's chest. Outside, the wind shifts and brings the smell of kelp and bared rock. Someone says it is a good sign. Someone answers that signs do not change what already is. They bury him like one of their own, in a mound facing the sea, with things that might serve if the other shore is a continuation. The sword does not go with him. It stays in the longhouse, driven into a post, because the community needs it as symbol and tool. They place beside him an oar, a horn, a handful of earth from each island he commanded. Over the grave, the crows do what they have always done. They count with black eyes what men cannot quite say. And then, when the story could have ended on that hill, the North's most persistent work begins, turning tragedy into teaching. Sagas, born to make winter bearable, take up their task. They etch in words what the stones already know. They tell the young that the enemy does not end when he falls silent, that a trophy is a risk, that mockery is always a double edge. They say the Jarl, the Strong, was not felled in battle, and yet he was defeated. They say pride is not only looking over your shoulder at the living, but looking down on the dead. They say, finally, there is no banquet where death lacks a seat, even if no one set a plate for her. In the nights that follow, the longhouse regains its life. People eat again, drink again, argue over prices. Ships are corked, boys throw knives at a wooden target, dogs fight for bones under the table. From time to time, an old man taps his thigh and tells the tale of the tooth. The youngest, eyes wide as oars, ask if it's true. The old man does not answer with empty oaths. He rises, holds his hand to the fire, lets the heat speak for him, and says calmly, "The smallest things decide the longest winters." With time, names change shape. Sigurd becomes more than a man, a figure carved in hoarfrost. New rulers like to mention his end when they meet to decide alliances, a reminder that politics is not only axes clashing, but also details that bite. In ports, stories sharpen like knives on wet stone. Merchants carry them from island to island along with salt, skins and wine. Máel Brigte's head loses its smell in the telling and becomes an idea. The tooth ceases to be bone and turns to warning. In the years to come, other wars will come. Other banners will be driven into wet ground. Other banquets will celebrate victories that seem they will last forever. Yet each time someone drunk on triumph thinks to bring to the table what should remain on the field, a voice, perhaps not his own, perhaps as old as the crows, will whisper, Don't laugh too loud, don't hang the trophy so close. Don't forget that death can find muscle even while you sing. Some will say the gods did justice, that Máel Brigte's tooth was the hand of what ripples beyond the clouds. Others, more austere, will prefer the flesh's account, infection, fever, neglect, a world without antibiotics where a splinter can be a king. Both versions, in truth, are the same lesson in different clothes. Call it fate, call it prudence. Call it, in the northern way, wired, a thread you do not cut, only weave with care. Now let us return to the hall, to that first image. Night as an iron tide, shields hanging, roasted meat, voices mounting one over another. All of it will exist again because men cannot live without banquets or without stories. And each time a head falls, because they will on one side or the other, someone will remember that it is not the axe that closes the saga, but what we do after, with what the axe leaves us. Sigurd the Strong did not lose his head in the field. He lost it at the banquet, for one laugh too many, one gesture too few, for believing the dead do not bite. And that sentence, repeated calmly for generations, weighs more than any shield on the wall. The islands will remain islands. The wind will keep pushing ships and snuffing torches. The crows, patient for centuries, will go on attending to what rises and what falls. And in some future, when a child asks why up there among the beams a tooth carved in bone hangs, someone will tell the story of how an invincible Jarl was overcome by a bite that came from death. The child will laugh, perhaps. Say it cannot be. Want to go back to play? That is fine. This is why sagas exist. To stand watch when the laughter drifts away, to light a lamp when pride puts out all the others. In the last image, the sea is a dark pane. On it, a small boat is cut out like a splinter. We do not know who is aboard or where it goes. We only know he rows with care and hangs nothing from the side that might bite. Because in the north, at the end of every story, what endures is not force or shout, but prudence that learns at the first bite. That, and the memory of a banquet where fate, with rough humor, served itself the final course.